Rightio. So, hello everybody, and welcome to the next Wildstar Town Hall in the second edition, this one for EU Asia. Thank you all for joining us in this very cold, wintry night. We are going to take a moment and go through a few of our rules about how these town hall will occur. And then we're just basically, as mods, going to shut ourselves up and let you guys have the floor to talk about a variety of issues, topics, concerns, and even the happy, joyful answers that you may have in response to some of these topics that get brought up. I am going to be taking the time to tweet out a bit about when we go into each topic so people who may not want to hear about PvP can wait until the payment model gets mentioned or vice versa. So if you want to follow the tweets that are going to be going out, we will be using hashtag WSTH for Wildstar Town Hall. So keep your eyes peeled for that. You could also just follow me as well. Your choice how you want to do it. But that's going to be the easiest is to follow the hashtag. Um, Also, feel free to record and stream this event as you wish. There are no specific channels that this is being designed to. If you have people you want to share it with, by all means, please do so. It's about sharing information, it's about spending time together and revealing our opinions and being heard. Finally, there is one
User
rule that
joined
we
your
will not
channel.
tolerate in this particular meeting. Anyone who breaks NDA is gone. There is not a second chance. There is not a warning. It is that simple. So please, as long as you follow that one rule and be incredibly respectful to each other, which I know this community is so capable of, we'll be perfectly fine. So, what we're going to do before we go any further is we're going to take some time to introduce ourselves. And you probably hear a cat in the background, like meowing his head off. And I do apologize for that. However, I'm going to let Aiko go first. Go ahead, introduce yourself, tell people where you're from and what you're representing. And why not inform us what you're most excited about for Wildstar?
I will take my best crack at doing this. Hello all. Some of you I've met before, some of you I play with, some of you straight up hate me. It doesn't really matter. I'm Aiko. I'm here really to help pseudo moderate and run tonight's EU Town Hall. If you do know me, it's probably from Wildstar Central, where I also moderate and help out Zaprobo over there. Personally, with Wildstar, I'm really looking forward to the return of 40-man raiding and the difficulty that Carbine are promising us in that specific arena. But at the same time, I'm also really excited for pretty much everything else that that game is promising at this moment. Um, a little bit else about me. I'm English, 23 years old, and work as a coder as my secret disguise. I don't know. Secret identity. The fake me, yeah. So yeah, that's me.
Okay. I'll go ahead first as the other moderator. Everyone who pretty much recognizes my voice from some of the things that I've done. I am Pseudo. I am a mod here. Both Aiko and myself are not going to be giving opinions about anything. That's not our job. Our job is to keep you guys focused on certain topics. But I am a host on MMObuff.t, but I am also an incredibly proud member of the European Guild Enigma. And I am happy to say that I've got reps coming in from my guild, so at least I can keep my mouth shut and still, you know, be representing here, as the case may be. And for me, my favorite thing right now that I'm waiting for in Wildstar is the ability to blow up Chuas. Go ahead, Duris.
The Chewa love you, Pseudo.
You're a little quiet. Is he quiet for anybody else?
Seems to be quiet on my end as well.
All right, is this any better?
That's much better.
Much better.
Okay, there we go. But the Chewa love you, Pseudo. That's what I was saying. I'm Duris. I'm an officer in Alea Yacta Est, which is I guess an international guild. We've got a few thousand members. We've been around for about 7 years now. Spawned out of the as a fan guild of the Instance podcast that you may have heard of if you've played that game World of Warcraft. And I'm heading up the efforts for our exploration in this fantastic looking game called Wildstar. And the thing I'm most looking forward to is given the sheer just variety of interest and play styles with the people in our gaming community. This game is fairly ambitious and I think has just about something that appeals to everyone. So that is probably the most important thing about the game, I think, for us.
Fantastic. Next, we have, and if I get anyone's name or pronunciations wrong, please feel free to correct me because it's a matter of me knowing how to pronounce your names for the future. But next on our list is Dracobotavi. I believe I'm saying that correctly.
No, Drekkenbatavi.
Excellent.
It's
Can't see
an old Dutch name. Batavi is a Roman thing. Maar God, I'm representing Comics Elite. That's a Dutch social guild. Also want to write and do edit, everything else, PvP and PvE. And I am 36 years old, and I'm gaming for 5 years on MMOs, RPGs, and the guild itself is 9 years. Is 9 years old.
Excellent. And I believe Hammerless is also with your group?
Yes.
Yeah. Just a member, but I'm backing my friend Europe, Joko Batavi. And I'm really excited to be talking about this upcoming game, Wildstar. First time I do something like this, but it really seems awesome.
Next, we have Old Git.
Hi, my name's Old Git. I'm from the brilliant guild called Enigma. I'm Quartermaster, Council Member, General Scapegoat. Really looking forward to raiding and crafting in Wildstar. That's about it.
The name has not currently changed on the TeamSpeak yet, but I do know that Mizpah is also with Enigma. So go ahead, Mizpah. Introduce yourself. If he has his sound settings fixed. We'll probably have to come back to him. Okay, we'll have to come back. Next up, we have Moosh from Hive.
Yeah, hello evening everyone. I'm Moosh from Hive. We are a multi-gaming community and we are really interested in Wildstar, mainly because, like some of you already mentioned, the 40-man raiding and the various things that are getting into this game are just fabulous, and we really look forward to getting into this game. And for more information, Sinner will give you them.
Ha! Excellent. Sinner, your mic is currently muted, but by all means, please introduce yourself. And you're a little quiet, so you might want to turn your volume up.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Definitely sounds a little clearer. Is he still quiet for people?
Sounds okay on my end.
Excellent.
Yes,
Go for it, Sinner.
All right, everybody. I'm the owner of HiveClan.com. Like Mush was saying, we're really looking forward to 40-man raiding, but most of all, I'm just trying to get my community into more games as soon as possible. Give them more of a variety. Right now, we're constantly just playing Final Fantasy, Battlefield 4, and other games like that, but with Wildstar and the opportunity that Wildstar gives the communities out there, I think that this will be a game to keep your eye on. So, yeah, that's it from me, and Mush basically covered most of it, so...
Well, welcome to you guys. Next, we have Akaria.
Hello, guys. Just a quick check. Is my microphone working?
It's working, but it's like your voice is a little quiet. I wonder if I just have sound turned down on my
No.
side, because everyone's a little quiet for me.
There's quite a lot of interference on that mic there.
Go ahead and say something again, Akaria.
Is it better now?
A little better. Just go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Right, so basically I'm a carrier. I'm representing Immortalis Noctis, a guild that's been standing since Aeon. I'm Belgian, I'm a student, IT, and what I'm really looking forward to for Wildstar is basically 40-man raiding.
Excellent, and it looks like you have chaos energy with you.
Yes, hello, I'm Chaos. I'm also a council member of IN. We have indeed been together since Aeon, which is 4 years ago now, and we are all looking forward to playing Wildstar. I thought I was mostly interested in 40-man raiding, but then I saw the hoverboards, and that's the only thing I care about now.
Well, I will let you know that we did end the United States, or the North America, I should say, town hall with a comment on hoverboards, so you're not the only one in that boat. Go ahead, Steppenwolf.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Steppenwolf from Genji, a German community site. We are playing a lot of games from Battlefield 4 to Wildstar, of course, in the future, but also we have a PlanSide 2 part and all that kind of just games all around. I'm very excited to be here. It's my first time doing such a thing, and I'm really looking forward to the PvP in Wildstar due to the free action combat system, so pretty hyped at the moment.
Oh, thank you very much, Steppen. We have in our stream the streamer, Darth Laser, and so I'm just going to let him continue what he's doing. And go ahead, Blank.
Hello folks, my name is Blake Space. I'm the general manager of Subterfuge Gaming, leading a little known section, Subterfuge Vanguard into Wildstar. Our organization's been around for about 5 years. I've been a part of it for about a year now. Really looking forward to just all the awesomeness that's Wildstar, whether it's hoverboards or critical crafting or anything that they're throwing out there that they're telling us is going to be a part of this game. I'm just so excited for it.
I hear ya. Next we have Eloa.
Hello everyone, I'm the European representative of Guild. We are an international multi-gaming community. You may know our leader, which is doing the UDP show on Gamebreaker TV. And I'm very excited about Wildstar because I have the feeling that it's the first real consequent candidate to become the successor of World of Warcraft, and I mean by that the old World of Warcraft, the one we have all loved in Vanilla. And so I'm more a PvE person, so I'm looking forward raiding with people and enjoying myself there. And the housing also. Housing seems very cool.
Excellent. Next we have Sarah Serenity.
Hi everybody, I'm here representing the EU side of warplots.com, your community fan site for everything Warplots related, which accounts for about 5 lines of text at the moment, but we're working on that. What am I most excited about in Wildstar? Well, of course, Warplots, duh. But on top of that, anything PvP orientated, whether it's ganking, being ganked, arenas, battlegrounds, whatever, I love it. Can't get enough of the PvP.
Fantastic. And then we have Sylvan.
Hey, I'm Sylvan. I run Wildstar Core, which is currently down, but there is a forum. Currently rebuilding into a bigger and better site, so it's more sort of resource-based, to give you lots of resources about Wildstar, probably more after launch, since we actually don't know that much yet. I'm most excited for PvE progression because it seems to have been lacking over the last few years.
Excellent. And Ms., are you back?
Let's find out. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Woo! Hello, folks. Well, I'm not sure whether to introduce myself with my Enigma hat or my MMO buff hat. I guess it's mostly the Enigma hat, though there is the Cosmotronic show side of things. But Enigma have been around for a while. We're very excited to be raiding and moving forward with every single aspect of the game. Focus will be raiding, but we will be doing everything. I'm not sure what else people want to know, but you've probably seen us around a little bit in the community.
The only other question is what you personally are looking forward to the most when it comes to Wildstar.
Myself, incredibly difficult and challenging raid content, consequences to actions, and mistakes causing people to fall down dead.
Excellent. So now we have gone through, we've introduced everybody. Now here's how this is going to work. We want everyone to have a chance to speak on topics. So what we're going to have is our lovely Aiko is going to introduce certain umbrella topics. He will mention things that are suggested topics of discussion, and then we leave it to you guys to actually discuss it. Now, to start off, what we have is for you to send me a message on TeamSpeak when you wish to speak, so you can queue up to speak. Once you have queued up for speak, I will mention your name and let you talk. After a bit of time, depending upon how topics go, we will remove that restriction per each topic, and that will allow the floor to open up without having to go through a moderated process. But to start, it just helps us to set a flow and to allow people to have a chance to speak. So there will be a brief pause after Aiko brings up his announcements as to what each topic is, while we wait to see who wishes to stand up first to the plate. Are there any questions?
Silence is a
Okay.
no.
So I'm always going to assume silence is a no. All right. So yes, Aiko, that is going to be our very first topic. So by all means, please start us off.
Well, firstly, we're going to dive straight into upcoming community events being taken on by the Wildstar community as a whole. Some of you might know of Wildstar Central, primarily Zaprobo's huge effort of extra live streaming recently. So yeah, we're going to open the floor to people talking about maybe organising future events, what is coming up, just getting the word out about maybe what your guild is doing, and if it is a sort of an open participation event. So that's where we're going to start off, and then we'll take it from there.
So whoever would like to speak up on that particular topic, by all means, send me a message and I will give you the floor. Or as I said yesterday, the talking stick. Okay. So at this current moment in time, I'm going to pick on blank space. Are you there, blank?
Currently muted.
He is currently muted, yes. Okay. Alora, go right ahead. Aloha. Oh, I'm going to get your name wrong. I do apologize.
Oh, there's no worries. I wanted to be the second person to speak. This is really embarrassing. I wanted to react on blank space. But okay. What my guild is about to do in Wildstar? We have different plans. As we are an international guild, our biggest plan is to have activities all the time. I mean, for Oceanic time, European peak time, and North American peak time, which is not something easy to organize, I guess, and it has not been organized in so many games so far because of the restriction between North American and European server in general, which is why I really, really do hope they will make international server, but I have not so much hope for that, I'm afraid. And we are going to focus on raiding 25 man or 20 man and 40 man, and we are going to do war plot, etc. And we have decided that we will do the wall leveling system in group. Really want to have a strong community feelings and always have people playing together. That's basically what we are going to do in Wildstar.
Okay. Go ahead, Mizpah.
I guess the question would be, as much as anything, with so many people here representing different parts of the community, the question becomes, what communally do we want to put together for the benefit of the community? There's been shared game nights before that have run successfully, there's been talk of tournaments and other elements, but I would throw the question out there and say, what would everyone here like to see that we can actually advertise, promote, and run as a collective group. So it's not advertising, MMO Buff or Enigma or pick your guild or preference here, but really are events, for and by the community. Because if we're ever going to get a forum to create more of these social activities, well, this is going to be it. So I'm happy to say, well, Enigma peeps can get involved in organising and helping, but what do people want to see? And what group of people are we going to get doing them?
And that's where I then again prod Blank and remind him that this particular topic is about the community events that are upcoming and things like that.
Wonderful. Can I have 10 seconds? I need to take care of something real quick. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Maybe we should have a countdown. Dun, dun, dun. The reason why I keep picking on Blank is because there is a community event that is coming up that is part of a charity event, and Blank has quite a bit of the information that he can give out on that. So we'll come back to Blank in a moment.
Nope, I'm good.
Are you sure?
I promise.
Okay.
So community stuff, as part of the format, we want to make sure that if anybody had something cool they were doing, we put this in here. I came back actually for the end of what Ms. was saying. We are working on another Elden Games for those of you who may have just come into the Wildstar community. We very much enjoy spending time together, cross-pollinating with each other, and there are a lot of very active people in the Wildstar community who'd like to hang out, who'd like to raise money for kids. They just did the 25-hour event, which is Child's Play? No.
Extra Life.
Extra Life. Thank you.
Yeah, Extra Life.
Child's Play is actually the one that we're trying to set up, and we're trying to encompass all of the Wildstar community. The last one that we did was very guild-centric, with the invitation to other people that were interested. We're planning an event, and it's going to be open to every organization that's out there. If you're a small group of people, you're a couple of bros who drink on the weekend, who play Wildstar, or you're a hardcore raiding guild, we're working on setting up an event where we're going to play Wildstar, not a bunch of other games like we did for the Elden Games, the first one. We're going to play Wildstar for 24 hours for charity and have some kind of cool events that we're going to do as part of that. I can't really expound too far on that, but we wanted to let people know that sometime after launch, we're going to be putting together another charity event where we don't want it to be just about one group or a couple different groups. We want it to be anybody and everybody who plays Wildstar that wants to get together and do something. We're going to be raising money for kids. It's going to be a 24-hour event. Feel free to stream it. And there's more information to come, but we wanted to start throwing out that invitation now because we are working on all of the details, so there will be more to come in the future.
Okay. And Sarah?
Thank you very much. I'd like to grab the talking stick of doom and cross-pollinate slightly on some of the things we like to do, not so much now, but in the future with the war plots. Of course, we can't do it now because we don't have the game. Of course, it ties in because this is community-driven, and what we're really interested in doing is sort of like streaming war plot battles, but also doing things like war plot cribs, where we go around different guilds' war plots and sort of show them off on the stream and sort of the sort of thing they've got, which we think would be a fun thing to do, as well as, of course, organising sort of like mini tournaments and so on, which we've already done one of for the community, which was a sort of a smaller sort of a game that was done about it was about a year ago now, wasn't it? By Brandon from War Plots. But we're hoping that we can sort of bring out some of the sort of almost like esports aspects from War Plots themselves and bring that sort of more into the community itself. But of course, that's all in the future.
Most excellent. Was there anything that anybody else wished to bring up community event-wise for the future? And go ahead, Eloa.
Yeah, I just got this awesome idea that will be very interesting for community event. It's to make a housing contests where everyone can post his house and people on a forum, something like Wildstar Central could vote which house you prefer. And I don't know exactly how the housing items will be earned, but maybe we can give a prize to have more item for your house, something expensive or very rare for the person that win this. I really believe that we should do something about housing, and there's so many things that we can explore from there, as it has been done in almost no game so far, not at that point at least. I think it will be really interesting to take the chance to make contests and show off and everything like that.
Most excellent. Some really good ideas there. Are there anyone else who has anything they'd like to bring up on community events? Okie dokie. We're now going to take our next step and move into what is probably a controversial topic. Again, remember to start out. Just let me know what you want to say about it. And if you have any or no really ideas to what to say, don't worry. We've got suggestions for you, or at least topics for you to discuss. So go ahead, Aiko.
So the next topic we're going to dive straight into is the payment model. As many of you will know, the payment model was confirmed a few months back as a very Eve-like model of subscription with optional microtransactions in order to buy an in-game item that can then give you game time. Practically, if you farm enough, you're allowed to play for free. So we're going to open the floor to feedback on that. How do you feel about that now it's confirmed? Because last time we had the town hall, it was all very much what would we like to see. Now we know what we're getting, and what are you guys okay with that? That's what we'd like to hear, Rack. So yes, let's get the floor open.
And Eloa, go right ahead.
Sorry.
No need to apologize. The floor is yours, and that's what this is about.
I think that this payment model is probably the ideal one. A lot of people do not like so much the subscription model because, of course, it costs us money, so it hurt a little bit. But in another hand, it assures us, how can I say, to have players that really are involved into it, which is the contrary with a free-to-play, completely free-to-play model, where you have a lot of tourists that come out, and sometimes it's really spoil the community. So here, why I say it's ideal, because you have the subscription model, but in the same time, you have the possibility to buy your game time with in-game money. So more you play, more you save money in a way. And I think it's a system which guarantee you to have a good community, to have motivate player. It also will motivate players to play more, so it will increase the retention of the game instead of not returns gamers like a free-to-play model where people are going freely. And also it will cut the business of gold seller, and this is also something that spoils the community. And I think it's a very good model for those reasons.
Go right ahead, Steppenwolf.
Well, I mostly agree with you, Aloha. I probably have some doubts about how it's actually going to work. There are a lot of money sinks in EVE Online, which is very, very crucial to get such a payment model rolling. You said indeed that gold sellers might have a hard time. There might be a big inflation coming up if people just buy more game time and sell them in-game with the cred system we have. And including that, there might be, especially when you're coming into Wildstar a little bit later, such high prices that you probably need to buy some cred and sell them to get your basic gear that you just want to buy off the auction house if you're coming in 6 months late or something. And if there aren't any money sinks, you might have problems with that. On the other hand, of course, if you do have these, I think it's probably one of the most efficient system players interested. If you're new, you can just buy you in if you want to, but you can just jump in and play everything as everyone else if you really want that. And I think it's just depending on how Wildstar's actually going to include the cred system and what the ratio of trading will be in the end.
There was mention during the United States, I keep saying United States, it's North America, but the North America Town Hall, a question was asked about, can you actually gift cred out? And the answer is currently no. So do you guys have any comments you want to have on that before I go into people who are queuing?
Nope.
Okay.
You gifting. You have the question about gifting cred.
Gifting cred was brought up, and because someone had made mention the fact that they wanted to be able to gift, and at this current moment in time, you cannot pick and choose who gets the cred that you put up for sale, and you cannot gift it. That was commented upon during the North American Town Hall.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good choice, isn't it? Because if you allowed you to gift credit, it would be one way for gold sellers to get into the market and essentially make it harder to detect these transactions occurring. By taking that aspect out from you not being able to gift it, it essentially creates another wall for gold sellers to try and get over before getting your money from you and taking large currency exchanges.
User disconnected from your channel.
Okay. Sylvan?
Yeah, first and foremost, just having a subscription model I feel is a positive move. As much as I absolutely adored the sort of buy-to-play of Guild Wars 2 when it first came out, more and more I'm kind of wishing I was back on a sub, simply because things that are locked out of the game, if that makes sense, because they're not through in-game currency, they're not through completing a challenge, you have to get them via a lockbox, which I never want to hear that word again, and things like that. Completely disregarding the cred system, just the subscription itself, I feel, creates a much more positive in-game experience, because everything can be got by your hard work in-game. And that's really the basis of what I had to say about this. The cred system, I feel, is very positive. And on the sort of topic of being able to gift it, I understand the not being able to trade or gift within the game. But I see the idea of if you buy cred, because I think ours is £20 or something, isn't it? I think or £12 or something to buy cred. If you can actually gift the one that you buy rather than being able to like trade it in game, because obviously if you're paying the £12 for it, being able to give it to somebody else's account makes more sense, and a gold seller wouldn't necessarily buy the more expensive cred and then just give it to someone. So I see that as being an idea anyway.
Akaria?
Right, is my mic any better right now?
You're a little quiet. You might want to speak a little loud.
Right. Basically, I really like the way they're doing it right now, as in the two different ways of subscribing. The only concern I have about that is the possibility of double dipping into it while having actually paid for your subscription, but also having to buy cosmetic stuff.
And Mizpah?
I think a lot depends on if you look at this from an economic theory perspective. To go back to the sentiments of the first person who was replying, I think was that yourself, Eloa? I'm afraid I wasn't actually watching at the time, I just had the voice. I actually think the system is an okay compromise, but I would like to see a pure sub and no shred of free-to-play in any way, shape or form, but everyone has their own view. A long-term risk would be the creation of a two-tier economy. It's happened a little bit in EVE with Plex, which is one of the closest similarities, in that once you are in a position to generate enough revenue to afford Plex, you can maintain that status quo. New entrants to the market, as I understand that, find that particularly difficult to do. The thing for me will be, where are the controls on the usage of cred? I wouldn't like to see cred traded in the way that some are suggesting. There's a bunch of issues with that. But depending on where cred can be utilized, if it's only ever going to be a straight one-way purchase time for gold, and we never see a, well, I will sell this but only for a cred or anything of that nature. That removes many of the issues, and my understanding is that we're not going to see that. But cred as a currency, as opposed to cred as a conversion metric, would be two very different things. As long as economic theory is observed and adjustments are made to the rate of cred accordingly, and I believe it's been said in the past that that'll be done if needed, then it probably can run without issue.
Sarah?
Hi, yeah, I just want to pick it up on what the question Miz sort of posed, then sort of answered, but sort of wanted to tease it out and sort of fully discuss it a bit more. The thing with the cred system, as they have said, is it's going to be completely separate from any auction house or in-game trading mechanism. And this is important for controlling the economy. And this is where it differs from the Plex system. As a player, you can't control the price at which your cred is sold for. You just buy the cred at the set price, which is £11.99 for a cred. It then goes on the CE exchange and is determined on your server by the number of players playing. So it gives that control over the economy, which I think is very good. So it sort of answers some of those concerns you were raising then, Liz, about cred enabling the economy to run away with itself with hyperinflation. I think this is a neat way to control that. And it does stop then, I think it will help prevent a two-tier system cropping up, because you'll have this completely separate from just the amount of gold in circulation. Because let's face it, in all MMOs, the amount of gold as a function of time increases always one way.
I will also bring up the topic of the fact that cred is going to be purchasable per server, which means if you sell on one particular server, it is sold on that server. There was discussion in the other town hall about people's opinions on how that could impact anything from economy, and some people had opinions on ways to regulate that. Would you guys like to speak on that? Go ahead, Mispa.
I think the devil there is in the detail. To me, it's essential that the model is established that either there is a global economy for some items or there is a per-server economy. A per-server economy makes a lot of sense. Economies will move at different rates. There then, of course, is the issue that WoW now has, in that someone can look to do a server transfer, buy up half an auction house first, move and sell at a higher price, and things like that may need looking into, because they can actually, many years into that game, but now they're huge levers on the economy. The one concern I have with cred is, as I understand it to be implemented, it solves many of the issues. I, of course, would like not to have it, but it's a good implementation they're putting forward. My concern is if over time the rules for cred usage start to change, and we ever get to a scenario where effectively you need to own a cred to achieve a given purpose other than simply your subscription, then that's a very slippery slope. And you're back into two-tier economy, two currencies, and everything else. Now, I've never seen any indication that that will ever be done, so please don't, think that I'm suggesting it will be. I'm just flagging it as a let's make absolutely sure that we don't then say, well, let's have something you can only buy for cred, because from an economic theory perspective, it's absolutely
in your
horrible.
Channel timed out.
That was something that was addressed in the other town hall as well, is the fact that there has been hints from Jeremy Gaffney stating that they may consider cred for use other than just subscriptions. I'm going to open the floor now. You do not need to go through me. Chip in, chime in, all thoughts involving subscriptions. Go to town.
Well, I'll just throw in that that would be my fear, and if I felt, from a personal perspective, that's the route through which cred was going to go, I would argue vehemently not to have cred at all, should cred become a secondary currency system.
Well, it depends a little bit how it's done. For instance, in Guild Wars 2, I find the system with the crystal kind of well made. You can not buy game time because there's no subscription, of course, but you have a lot of cosmetic item that can be bought only with crystal, and I'm really fine with that. If it's cosmetic, if it's not something you need to be more performant in game, I don't think it's a problem to use the cred for that.
Yeah, well, about cred, if it stays with subscription, it would be okay, because if you play more, you can, yeah, if you play a lot, you can just keep playing and buy your subscription that way. You don't have to use real money then. But if you could also, for example, I'm thinking out of my head now, just like buy a character, like if you want to be a new race or something like that, you could maybe use cred for, or if you want to switch server. But I wouldn't like to see cred used to really, I wouldn't really want to see it used in game, you know, if you, that you can buy items with it, that you can buy anything important with it in game, just out of the game, if you want to switch server, stuff like that. Maybe, yeah, I would say cosmetic, but if they would start cosmetic, then yeah, items like maybe gear or other stuff might come in as well. So they should stop at a certain point.
To me, the point is not to head down that slippery slope. I'm actually also okay with, as you raise it, it's a good point, cred being used for things like I want to server move, I want to name change, do something that affects your character or your location,
User
but not
joined your
your
channel.
gameplay or someone else's gameplay experience. Everyone plays these games for different reasons. It might be the competitive side of things, it might be escapism, it might be 101 things. But the moment someone's gameplay experience is different to mine because they have more money in their wallet, or mine is different to theirs for the same reason, that to me is a fundamental foul. In terms of my personal opinions, because it breaks one of the fundamental rules of gaming, and that is that everybody has the equal opportunity through skill to achieve whatever they want to achieve. And if I can translate cred via my own economic circumstances into an advantage, I'm really not worried if it's competitive. It's still if it's cosmetic, sorry. It's still a disingenuous advantage that would leave a sour taste in my mouth.
I was going to say, cred for a server transfer would be a problem, because you'd find out the cheapest server that cred was on, and then transfer to that server and buy the cred you wanted to and transfer back again.
Yeah.
Very good point. That would need some controls to stop that happening.
Yeah, that may be a little bit complicated to check on that. I think I've heard that they have hired economists to deal with this cred system. So they probably are really investigate every possibilities and every impact this can have on the community.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is easily controllable. You know, you can quite easily predict it and control. For example, you're moving from a server where cred is expensive to a cheap one. Well, what you do there is you just ensure that the cost from transferring servers varies depending upon this very aspect to stop that happening. Because if you don't, like you say, then they're going to have a problem with gold sellers who will just hop from server to server, buying the cheap cred on a cheap server, then hopping back and selling it on an expensive server. So the easiest way to get around that is just to ensure that the cost for transferring is prohibitively expensive to stop you doing that transfer backwards and forwards with cred.
The same is happened to Rift. Rift have an can you send you to an alt van you and sell it, and the alt sent it back, the money back to the main, and people make a lot of money with that.
You got free, isn't it? Free server transfers.
Yeah, free server transfers. No, maar ze sent, you can send items to your alt, and via your alt you can buy it on the auction, sell it on the auction, and send the money back to your main. That happened in Rift, and I hope not that it is going on in Wildstar with Cred of another system.
It has been mentioned that cred itself is only tradable on the CX and not the auction house. And the commodities exchange is what the CX stands for. Sorry, I'm using jargon here.
So
I
the price
believe
is
the CX is actually a cross-server much in the way that the Guild Wars 2 auction house works, so you couldn't play each server off against each other. I might be incorrect on that, but that's how I understand it.
So how are they going to set the price for cred?
It'll be set by players.
It's set by, if you look on, it says on their website, if you look under their business model, under the cost of cred, it tells you that it's going to cost, for example, £11.99, and is then going to be tradable, where the cost will be set by the number of players on your server. So it's you can see it's a way of ensuring that they try to also balance populations.
Right.
I think allowing aftermarket services with cred opens up a can of worms. I think the can of worms can be dealt with. I suspect they may need to be dealt with better with things such as time restrictions, only one cred transfer in a 6-month period, or something of that nature. At least make people absurdly longball their choices if they're playing economic games with cred. The gateway to me is still using cred in a manner other than the way they've initially introduced it to the community. As long as it doesn't affect my gameplay experience or my gameplay looks or anything else, I am fine with it, and the general trend in this conversation seems to be the same thing. But the systems that people point to in other games and say, these are good, these are systems I can't personally stand, that I can point to a number of problems with.
And we don't want a box that we open with a key that we buy with cred.
No.
Now that's what we don't want. So. But we might want achievements, though.
I certainly liken it more to the old when WoW back in sort of Burning Crusade time, when the only other thing I could think they get away with is those one-time mounts that they sort of did, or it wasn't one time, but sort of once in a blue moon they had a mount that you could buy for real money. That's the only thing I can think of. It's just that I find that fundamentally different to a cash shop that's constantly being updated. They had one, I think that was the Spectral Horse thing. They had that one mount and that was it. And it wasn't constantly adding things and they weren't trying to promote it. They just had that one thing. So I don't have a problem with that kind of thing too much, but I'd rather they stick away from all of that and just focus on cred for subscription.
Yeah, the 10-year amount that they worked out was actually such a success that they actually then started doing it all the time. I believe they carry on.
Yep.
They release more amounts.
That's the slippery slope that I don't want to see them take. Oh, people like this, so we'll add more of this stuff. And oh, we could add this as well because people bought that, and then they end up with a cash shop.
There is one fundamental here. If we look at Loctro as an example, now there's a game that I won't go near because of the current implementation of the cash shop, despite a lot of things about that game that I like. Every time you sneeze, breathe, bend over, turn around, or blink, a new offer is put in your face that you can only spend real-world money on for the alternate currencies. And it's hideous. At least in the WoW Spectral Horse days, you actually had to leave the game and interact outside of the game world to make those purchases, and that to me is a really fundamental distinction.
Right, I am just going to quickly intercede here. We're going to take a point that's been raised in the Twitch chat and open that up to the floor for discussion for a couple of minutes before we push on to a new topic. Otherwise we'll stay here all night talking about business models. And that will be coming from the Dist over on Twitch, who has mentioned this. He says, how about this to deal with cred transfers? You lock the cred to the server it's purchased on, so if you want to resell it, you can only sell it on that server. So your cred tourism, as he puts it, would only be useful if you were to use the cred yourself, as opposed to you exploiting it for market gain. How do people feel about that?
Probably easier just to make.
If you want to PM me, because I believe sudo is be right backing, and I will open the floor. Right, I believe Sarah wants to weigh in
Thank
on
you.
this.
It was just to sort of pick on. I think it is a good idea because I mean it's essentially being hinted at by Niz and what he was discussing there, that by locking it does prevent the tourism effect we were just talking about. But I think the one strong point I just want to come back to that Niz said that I completely agree with him on is what happens if they suddenly then start using the cred to do other things as well, and that's when it becomes bad. So I think it's much better that they keep the cred just for buying game time and it's locked to the server at purchase, that the dist said. Is it the dist or the dis or the...
Just call him Dist, he's in my guild.
Okay, dist.
There's a
And moving on
danger
to...
here. Oh, we're not in open. Sorry, Ico.
Right, it was Old Git who wants to weigh in.
Yeah, it's me who
anyway.
wants to speak anyway. You can speak over me anytime you fancy, Miz. What it would be easier maybe if they made cred. So if you buy cred, you can't resell it. As in at all. You know, you can buy stuff with it once you've purchased it, but you can't then resell it back onto the market.
Yeah, that's a good idea indeed.
So you can only sell the cred that you bought from Team Wildstar themselves.
Yeah, if you literally buy stuff to put on the market, that you obviously there's some kind of out of game transaction you'll be able to do for that. But if you bought some cred for in-game gold, that cred there you should not be able to sell again.
It will become like Soulbound or something like that.
Yeah, otherwise the gold sellers will be rampant and just wait for the price to change and then sell it or buy it, whatever.
Oh, don't seem to have happening. Sarah wants to go straight back into it.
Yeah, just picking up what you said. Yeah, I think that's what they intend to do, is that you have a separate exchange, different from the auction house that's done external to the game, where you buy the cred on the CX. Once you've bought it, the only thing you can do is use it. You use it, and then what happens is it just kicks into it adds basically an extra 30 days to your game time. So it just queues it up on your game time as you buy it. So it's not like you can buy low, sell high.
It seems to say you can bank it, which is interesting. You can bank it without using it, according to the thing they're talking about.
Yeah, you bank it till you want to. You can basically bank the units. This is what I've heard, but like you say, the problem is it could all suddenly change, couldn't it? Or they could suddenly bring out more information and we've misinterpreted what's being put up.
Mm-hmm. And Mizpah would like to go.
There's a mini danger here, of course, that we're trying to come up with a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. This is down to the implementation details that we don't know about yet. I'd be more keen about sending a message as a community that goes, these are principles that we like. And then it's a case of making sure that the mechanics in play and the choices made follow those principles. I think it's a principle to me that someone shouldn't necessarily be using their wallet in real life to enhance their gameplay. By all means, if someone has more time, let them use their time to enable them to play the game. Create that environment where everybody can get involved, and that's a good thing, particularly if it promotes investment in the game from people. But simply put, things should be very, very restrictive. I'd like to see cred never move beyond I'm buying a sub. That would probably simply be the easiest solution. If that's the only thing that can ever be done with cred, every other problem goes away.
On a good point, you can also help members of the guild out that you have friends of who haven't got much money. You can just give them your gold and they can buy cred.
Yeah.
So
there are definite positives to this system.
There are.
Radio. This particular topic we will now be drawing to
User
a
left your
close.
channel.
Remember, folks, if you wish to comment on anything or have any questions, concerns that haven't been addressed, you can go over to Wildstar Central and start up a forum post or participate in some that have already been created. Yes, there's an awful lot. Aiko, drag us into the next umbrella topic.
Enough talking about, the economy of the situation. Let's talk about the combat and smashing each other's faces. I'm going to try and run it, so we'll go through the different types of PvP. So people who are interested in, very specific elements can have their moment to talk and their own dedicated little session. So we will go through open world, BGs, including in that are server types. So will you rolling a PvE, a PvP, RP, PvP, if that takes your fancy. And then we've got arena, war plots, and we'll just sort of round it up with a open floor as usual. So if people would like to let Sudo know when they want to talk, and we'll get this going.
Sorry, Sudo.
Yes,
she's
this
back.
is all about the PvP, all the things that people want to state. And I kind of figured as much, but go right ahead, Sarah.
Me. Okay, so I'll stick to what order we just said from Ico. So open world. Now, I really like what they're doing here with some of the open world aspects. And by open world PvP, I'm kind of hoping we see what we get in many of the Korean models, where open world PvP means I can go and kick anybody's ass. If somebody from my own faction annoys me, pinches my node, steals my mob, I can just flip the tag and go over and kick their head out of them. I love that. But the problem with many of the implementations in many MMOs, for example in Terra, particularly at the low level, there's no real reason to actually go out and PvP other people. Whereas I think Wildstar gets round that, other than Guild v Guild, of course. Whereas I think Wildstar's got two interesting applications, of course, the factions, but also the fact that you get PvP drops from players that you kill, and the size of reward that you will get from them depends upon how long that player's been around. So it sort of discourages ganking in a way, because you've got a vested interest in allowing a player to stay alive for an optimum length of time before you kill them. Perhaps it could lead to player farming, where bigger guilds protect smaller guilds, enabling them to rack up to the best possible reward when you all turn in, kill them, and collect the best PvP rewards. I like open world PvP, by the way. I best hand over, I'll just talk about it all night.
Go ahead, Steppenwolf.
Yeah, open world PvP is an edged blade, in my opinion. There are some very good implementations if you allow free roaming to every single area. But due to the fact that we have PvE and PvP servers, but it is allowed on PvE servers to play open world PvP, which is awesome to one aspect. But as we saw on the Esper stream, I think it was, the two stalkers attacked right in the end, and actually the Chewer Esper was not put onto PvP, so only the initial burst from those stalkers was just put on the warrior, and with that, guilds could just effectively use that to destroy someone else's place and just killing someone because they just saw them running around with a PvP tag on. And this is a really crucial thing in my opinion, because once you flagged, I don't think you can just deflag again for PvP, which is of course essential, because otherwise people would just never die. But in the end, if you don't have a restriction on it, like you have to wait, let's say, a minute or so until you can flag or actually participate in the PvP, I think that's going to be some kind of problem. On PvP servers, instead, I think it's one of the best features so far, due to the level restrictions that not every the exiles and dominions don't have their own leveling zones. In the lower levels, of course, but I think it was level 20 to 30 where they just share every leveling ground, and this really spices the game up for a lot of people, in my opinion.
Mizpah?
Well, as always, it's a balancing act. Much as people will groan now, I do not like open world PvP. Yet the guild runs on a PvP server. Why? So everybody can have the playstyle of their personal choice. My concerns with open world PvP are going to be, how do we allow open world PvP to take place in such a way that everyone has fun? The people that like PvP can engage in it. The world should be dangerous, I'm all for that, but there are so many examples of mechanics that lead to griefing in different games. So my question would be this: to the people that do a lot of open world PvP in various arenas, what are the gotchas and the mechanics and the possible solutions to the things that can lead to griefing and balance open world PvP and reduce griefing at the same time.
I'm about to open the floor because this is an open question and a lot of people would like to step in on this. Before I open it, though, I will throw out that and I wish I could remember his name, but someone from the NA Town Hall pointed out that they want to ensure that the Wildstar community doesn't fear PvP because it does have a bad rep. And he had stated that there are a lot of guilds out there right now currently recruiting who are more than happy to teach people how to PvP if that's something they would like to learn in Wildstar. So with that, and then with Mispa's questions, feel free to comment and add to it, etc. But the floor is open. You do not need to go through me now.
Yeah, I think different games have implemented PvP in different ways, and it's not been to everybody's cup of tea. And I think one of the key things that's happened in the past is where we've seen direct ports from Asia, in particular Korean MMOs, to the West, where the way in which the PvP was developed for the Korean market is, of course, used in a very different way to the way it's being used in the West. For example, take Lineage or Terra. The key problem you have there is the fact that in Korea, of course, going into PK mode and PKing a player is very, very serious. And it's, you know, it's frowned upon. You've got to have good reasons to go and kill a member of your own faction. Whereas Western players in these sorts of models do have a tendency just to run around and kill everybody. Arcade, for an example, is an interesting one where you had a large number of Westerners playing. And the one guild I was in Arcade on the Korean servers, the guild I was in, we quite happily ran around and killed all the Koreans, and this upset them so much that they formed an alliance that put any member of the guild on a kill on sight list. And that sort of did help the ganking because we kind of stopped them, because every time we appeared, we got butchered as soon as we stepped out of the town. And I think that's one way in which you can have a healthy PvP, is the community has to be in a way self-policing. Another way I think is part of the problem with some of these implementations is the reward you got. Take, for example, in Guild Wars 2, in World v World, it didn't matter how many times you killed the same player, you still got a reward for it. Whereas I think what Wildstar are doing that sort of helps balance that in a way is you don't get a reward if you start killing the same player repeatedly. But I do agree with you, it does have to be watched carefully, particularly within Western servers, because we can have a tendency to go a bit overboard when it comes to just running around killing players. But I think the key thing is to remember it's just a game. And what the hell if you get, you know, PK'd or griefed for a little while? And it's happened to me quite a few times, which is why I generally play under a different name.
What about adding a level range to PvP? And so much as I saw somebody on post a comment, but if you have it so that, say, the person was 1 or 2 levels either side of you, you can PvP them. But if they're 10 levels below you, you can't.
I don't know if it's technically possible, but that would be very good, because there is nothing more annoying than people griefing lower level. But it's just free kill, it has no challenge for them, it's just griefing another person. And that's the things I don't like in World PvP. I understand that once you decide I'm going to a PvP server, you have to accept that you will be ganked, that someone will maybe spit on you, that you will be mocked, you will be provoked, and that there will be war and aggressivity. That's the deal of the game. But I do not like people that try to piss off the player behind his screen. And there's a lot of players that enjoy actually that. They enjoy the idea that you are raging behind your screen. And that's not good, because there is a difference between killing a character and annoying someone who have done nothing wrong to you.
Yeah, I hope that have a level limit to hurt somebody. And if you are top level, you cannot. I hope that you have the 2 level below. You can PvP.
So to make things fairer.
Hmm?
Doesn't World of Warcraft like use a system where that if you kill a character a couple of times you don't get honor anymore for it? That's not a bad system as well.
Yeah. And that's essentially introduced by not you don't get rewards for it. I mean, if you keep killing the same player time and time again, very shortly, you're not going to get anything from them. You've got a vested interest almost in kill them, then make sure you protect them so they live for quite a few hours before they're killed again to drop the maximum loot.
The issue is, however, it's not so much the players who, and don't get me wrong, a PvP server is going to be dangerous. I'm fine, I'll just call on the guild. However, I'm more concerned with making sure that the mechanics aren't there that allow there to be no consequences. So in other games we've seen people stand on things where they can't be shot and kill people as they portal in. We've seen people at maximum level destroying a whole zone and the NPCs for hours on end. There's got to be two sets of mechanic for dealing with that. One has got to be, yeah, sure, no reward, but that's almost a given. The second is there almost needs to be a penalty, and ideally there needs to be some mechanism where PvP and griefing can actually be distinguished from each other and acted upon accordingly. I'm not saying that's an easy conundrum to solve, but to me the concept of PvP is simple. You go in to try and achieve a reward, but to do so you take on risk. The moment there is fighting without the concept of risk or reward, from my personal view, it's broken.
I don't think that the people that are PvPing in World PvP do it for any kind of rewards. Their only reward is to win and to have fun while kicking the ass of someone else. So no matter how much penalty or how much reward you will give, that will not change the griefing system.
I think risk is a bigger issue than reward.
Yes,
I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I'm going to let Akaria have a chance to speak, because every time Akaria has gone to say something, unfortunately, they haven't had a chance to pipe in. So go ahead, Akaria, chip in. And the only other thing I will add is that there was discussion during the other town hall about community policing trolls in PvP.
Right, thank you, Pseudo. Basically, the way I see PvP is it's not meant to be friendly. When you go to a PvP server, you do it with the goal of doing PvP and participating in any form of PvP. Basically, everything is allowed, in my opinion, no matter how you do it. You chose to roll on a PvP server, so you should be able to deal with it. If you don't like PvP, there's always the option of going to a PvP server.
I'd have to disagree with that quite strongly. As a guild, as a community, we want to allow everyone to experience all forms of gameplay. I go to a server and say, yeah, I might be killed, but I don't sign up for griefing. I sign up to live in a world where there's consequence, and there's an almighty difference between the two.
No, the thing is, if people, for example, want the RP, that's fine, but if you're doing it on a PvP server, then you should also include the fact that you could get ganked at any point.
I think in your definition you're not distinguishing perhaps between what I would term PvP and what I would term griefing.
Yeah, I mean, you can get players being griefed, but I think there are a couple of things. We've got to be careful when comparing to other games. For example, with Guild Wars. I know many of the hardcore PvP guilds have quit Guild Wars 2 because the PvP in many respects is unstructured and serves no purpose. Like Eloit says, you get bored, so you just end up picking on the single player running around trying to get their world completion or something. You know, and I'm hoping this is what things like war plots will get around. They'll give PvP more of a purpose in terms of punishments and a way of control. If you look at the system Ion uses, which is where if you as a senior player go rifting, I loved rifting, I still do rift a lot in Ion. If you look at the rifting, if you start killing players lower level than you, you immediately get shown on every allied map. So they go as a skull, and they can track your position, so everybody knows where you are. And that's quite a good way to deal with that sort of thing, because suddenly if you gank someone or kill someone too many times or pick on a lower levels, everybody in that faction or every other player knows exactly where you are, and people will hunt you. Suddenly, you get daily rewards for hunting people who are doing that sort of thing, which is a good way of controlling it.
I think that there are two parts of players playing PvP. There are the hardcore PvP players who don't mind getting griefed because they just enjoy the challenge. But I do know a lot of people just play on PvP servers to play with their friends, with their guilds, family, and so forth. So I think there has to be at least some restriction, like a level restriction, like we talked about earlier. But in the end, especially in high level, if you want to do your world completion, it's totally up to you and the community you are in, maybe Exiles or Dominion, to just say, hey, there is a group of players killing us all over again. We need help, like an Aeon. And especially that just bonds the community together to just say, okay, we won't allow that from our side. And it just makes the game more in-depth, in my opinion. On the other side, was what Aeon has is they have certain safe spots in each area, which is very important to me, because you might get a phone call or something and you just can't stand around like in PV on a PvE server, because you might get killed and you have to run all over there again. So I would like to see something like that, just to go AFK or just to chat with someone you just met or something like that.
We're now
Agreed,
going
that's a good way to do
to migrate into a different type of PvP discussion other than open world. The floor is going to remain open. Remember to respect each other and give each other a chance to talk. And Aiko, go ahead and direct us.
Sure, we're going to move on to talking more about the instance forms of PvP that we'll be seeing in Wildstar. So as we know them now, arenas, battlegrounds, and then war plots on top of that, though I think war plots we might save for a third separate discussion afterwards, because they are quite unique in their own right. So move away from more the aspects of griefing and open world and the ups and downs of open world PvP, and more onto everyone knows they're in here to fight. There's objective-based combat. What are you looking forward to? What do you want? What do you not like? Have at it, guys.
And again, the floor is open. You do not need to go through me to speak.
I quite like the variation they're proposing, you know, in a sense, having things like capture the flag, or a sort of what I can make out a sort of a term of loose term of football, as it were. I'm looking forward to that, because I think it's good that they're going to put these different variations in. The one thing I hope they don't do, which is what I feel that where WoW went wrong to a certain extent, is to try and balance 1v1. I would sooner not see that person. I know it's very contentious for many people, but I mean, don't try and balance all the different classes with all the different races in 1v1. Make sure that you do things as teams, and that overall the team is balanced, not the individuals.
I hope they also act really aggressive against people that try to just AFK and stuff in battlegrounds and like that. You know, that you've got a good group, but that like half the group isn't even moving and doing stuff. So I hope they implement a system that they interact everybody that's in the battleground. If you're not, you get kicked out as soon as possible.
Agreed. I mean, that was a real problem, wasn't it? Particularly in things like Ion, where you would go and do the instant PvP there, and people would actually advertise for AFK groups, because they would just go AFK and sit in the safe zone and not come out. I mean, it should be, and they should have been kicked out and actually had taken a loss for doing that, because it just destroys everybody's fun, going to these sorts of things and then going AFK and expecting either one or two people to carry you, or for the system to reward you for nothing. I agree with you on that one. Should be harsh punishments.
I think where structured PvP comes in, and I'm all for it, but is to make sure we have the sort of communication channels. So I'd love to see external APIs be able to do things like pull up leaderboards and rankings and lists. By having the ability to compare and contrast yourself with others, you're actually going to encourage competitive play at a really fundamental level. By the same token, pickup groups or casual play needs to be encouraged to allow people to actually experience these sides of the game.
Well, if it comes to PvP in general, may it be arenas, battlegrounds, or any other type of PvP, it always comes down to balancing for the casual gamers as well as the hardcore gamers. May it be that there are cookie cutter builds which are just too good, or maybe that a class is just too hard to play for a casual player in PvP. So that is probably the biggest concern everyone has, because you can balance 2-in-2, 3-in-3, and 5v5, but I think the interesting part is it to be playing Battlegrounds or something even bigger, where you really need to communicate with your team and just plan what you are going to do and where you want to go to, and that is enhanced in Wildstar itself with in-game mechanics like maybe shoutouts, or that you can sign a target, like 1 or 2 players are kind of leaders or something like that, because otherwise you always have just you jump into something and there is like no communication, and you just get a group of 4 players in a battleground and they just communicate really well because they play together and they can take apart whole teams.
But their rankings and systems come into play. System design should filter more efficient and less efficient groups away from each other as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that I'm hoping we'll see that proper sort of matching, team matching.
One of the things that could also be discussed in regards to things such as Arena is the fact that there is something called a limited action set, known as LAST for people who are new to Wildstar, and its impact on PvP and an Arena mechanic.
I think some of that comes down to the point that was just raised. I've forgotten who raised it, about optimal builds, and there will be sites that will pop up giving you optimum builds, and I'm sure then we'll see sites fall on from that will give optimum build type classes as well, to show how the classes will interplay with different optimal builds, and I think that's a good thing.
I guess I can speak to that one publicly, as a lot of people know I was lucky enough to be at Arkship, and they publicised the results of an arena tournament, which I was lucky enough to be part of. And one thing they do with the LAS, which is very, very nice, you can't make random, you can't change your choices once battle commences. So effectively you're going to work towards a team build that achieves a given result, and you could skew your build towards one end of a spectrum or another, but you run a risk. It's like the metagame in many things, where paper, rock, scissors, etc. Because of that, because of the principle in game design of imperfect balance, and sorry if I'm going off on a minor tangent here, it is unlikely that one flavour of the month build will start to win outright over time, because people will start to develop the counter builds for it. And so by having to make a choice and then be committed to your choice for the duration of a game, actually really becomes quite fundamental, and I think, personally, will limit the effect of this is the flavour of the month build number 62.
To pull into a comment, Bonsai Joe states, dual class, amps, gear, group variation, there won't be cookie cutter. Is this something you all agree with?
No, you'll find it's a bit like looking at TSW and looking at the cookie cutter molds there. They do refine and they do change, as in each each time they do a patch, they alter some of the stats slightly, and they alter the way in which the passives interplay with the actives. But I think you will always find that people will sit there and they will spend hours dueling each other, trying to work out the optimal build sets that will give the maximum DPS or give the maximum mitigation for different roles. You'll find people will do that, because you've got the same thing. You've got in TSW, you've got 512 skills, of which you can choose 7 passives and 7 actives. And people have worked out the most optimal builds to have. So I think we'll find that still popping up here.
I'm quite sure that people will come up with optimal builds for a given scenario, irrespective of the complexity. The greater the complexity, the greater the barrier to doing so, and the longer it will take, and the less adopted they will be. And those are all good things. So I would argue for complexity, depth, and customization. From what I've seen, that seems to be out there. And anyone that's experienced it at the conventions and stuff has probably walked away with that opinion. But I'm not particularly worried about cookie cutter builds dominating the game, PvP or PvE. at this point in time.
I quite agree, because people will just adjust. One of the key in TSW within PvP, one of the first cookie cutter builds that popped out was something called a glance tank, which essentially reflected the damage back at you. So you'd be firing away and suddenly you'd be actually killing yourself. And of course, then people worked out optimal ways to get around the glass tank. And then you'd have parties that were made up with people who were specifically set up just to take out the glass tanks. And then you saw the number of glass tanks disappear rapidly. So I think what Mr. says is correct. It's not something to be scared of, because people will always find around it because of the number of variations you've got.
Okay, Aiko, I believe this is a brilliant time for us to migrate into the next part of PvP.
Yes, our final discussion, if I'm not incorrect, as well on the PvP
Under the
subject
PvP
of,
umbrella?
Yes, and potentially one of the most unique aspects, I'd say, of Wildstar's PvP, or at least what they're offering us so far, and that would be war plots. So we're talking about the big 40-man v40, build a castle, get your friends, smash a castle into someone else's castle, see what happens. So yeah, if I know we've got Sarah here, who's obviously from Warplots, and a lot of guilds here that are also very much intrigued by the ability to actually do organized 40v40 PvP. So let's get right onto it.
Okay, this is the thing that, of course, as you can tell, I mean, I'm in with the Warplots community, so I must be pretty psyched for it, and I am, because I mean, another game I do enjoy playing. It's one of the only sort of ones where you run around and shoot players without sort of having a level or an RPG experience. Is Team Fortress, and I mean, who hasn't, when they've been playing Team Fortress, want to actually change the base and build it their way? Yeah, I mean, this is what we're allowing you to do essentially with war plots. You can sit there, you can plan your optimal base, you can fill it with turrets, with defensive stuff, with offensive stuff. You can put raid bosses in there. There's so much to it. I'm really psyched for this. I think it's going to be amazing. The one thing that I think, which hopefully won't come as an issue, is trying to get organised 40-man teams together for it. Because, of course, with raiding, you've got to get one team of 40 people coordinated enough to do it. With war plots, we're going to need 2 sets of 40 people. But I'm really looking forward to this because, the fun you can have with building your own base and even just showing your base off, how you've pimped it out and how you've designed it, I think is excellent. The amount of strategy that can come in, particularly if we find that the different paths have important roles to play, because you could imagine having almost like a sapper division of stalkers who, say, managed to get settlers to build them from explorers, found short paths and hidden routes into the other player's base, and have taken in a load of explosives, go into the base, destroy the offensive or defensive equipment they've got in the base. I think the gameplay is going to be fun and fantastic. Sorry, I'll keep quiet, I'll just ramble on again.
I would love to see this in the open world, to be honest. If you would be able to make like somewhere some kind of base in a contestant area, it would give you something beneficial if you do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. And yeah, you team up with people in the area to make it or whatever, and you have to defend it against the enemy so that you get a bonus, whatever that you get bonus.
Yeah, there is a problem with having, war plots are instanced, and there are several issues that gets round that you suffer from if it's open. For example, if we look at Arcade, which is a new Korean, it's written by a Chinese developer, released in Korea, and then it was released in Japan. Now it's being released in China, where they had essentially a complete open world, where they have open world player housing and open world castles that players can build. One problem you have is if you can't, because don't forget your war plots take damage. So after you've built this thing and put the resources into building it, they will take damage as you fight with them. If you have it completely non-instance and open world, you'll find that players will turn up at 4 AM and just ransack your base and pinch everything. So that's the only downside I think you've got to watch out for with not having it instanced, is you run the risk of building this base up and then having players come along and just loot it.
Well, if it would be like time limited, for example, if you would build your base and you would get advantages from it for like an hour, and people have an hour or something more, I'm just saying, to ransack it, and then people would be more excited to come and fight you for that hour, because otherwise you would get all the bonuses from your base.
I believe it's set up on I've been reading just a quick read about it. It's been set up on a matching system. So you literally got to say, tick,
Yep.
I want to enter our war plot, enter the war plot battles. So it's set up on a matching system, and then your war plot is moved next to an opposing war plot, or they're moved to you. And then the battle commences. It's not going to be like it's there and then everybody can attack you or whatever it is. It will be a planned battle between two war plots.
Yeah, I know, but I'm hoping that they introduce something similar in the open world.
I honestly prefer the idea of an instance much for that kind of stuff, because when it's an instance, you know what you're doing. You know that you're doing your fortress to fight. If it's in the open world, you don't really have the choice. It will be more complicated to set up. It will not always be fair, and that will be the point, right? But then it will be another game, and there's other games that are doing that. For instance, the Elder Scrolls Online will have their Cyrodiil zone where you have fortress to take and keep and stuff like that. And here in Wildstar, it will be more fenced, but it also balanced better and with everything that goes to it. So it's maybe a more fair game, more restricted, but in the same times, it will be more like a sport. And that's also very, very fun.
Yes, I mean, I know it brings up the
User
interesting
disconnected
point that
from
this
your
does
channel.
touch almost on esports type activities that we can get out of war plots, which I think will be fantastic. You know, and I think if you want to have a look at some of the problems with open world sort of fortresses, just have a look at Ion, where fights for fortresses just turn into Zerg, because it's just more a question who can turn up with half the server in one spot at one time. You know, no tactics involved, you just hammer it with everybody. Whereas instance, you get around a lot of those issues.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to see these uninstanced. I think it generates a world full of problems and doesn't promote skillful competitive play. One thing I'd like to touch on, though, is war plots are often seen, and as I understand things, they're a war party is a thing in its own right. However, there's obviously going to be an association between guilds and organized groups and war plots. One thing we're aware of, they've mooted the idea of several times, is that the PvE component of a group can go ahead and go raiding and capture XYZ ABC boss, and then install it on their war plot, because they've actually achieved that capture. So PvE is benefiting the PvP part of an organized group. My question is going to be, logically, therefore, there would have to be the alternate relationship, whereby the PvP activities of an organized group can benefit the PvE activities of an organized group. And I'm wondering if anyone has thoughts on what that might be or might entail.
That's a good question.
Go ahead, Old Git. I'm going to let him have the floor since he's trying to say something.
Okay.
But
All I was going to say is I understand that the point of view of the war plots is based on a point system. From what little I understand of it, so that even if you get a raid boss, it may be that on a 40 versus 40, you have 100 points per war plot to spend on your war plot, and a raid boss may be 20 points. So.
But it's more the fact that a PvE group that's affiliated in your war plot has achieved the task of making the PvE raid boss available to you as a choice. So therefore, effort or work has been put in to achieve an objective to make that choice available. It would strike me as logical that there is a symbiotic relationship between PvE and PvP. It would strike me as illogical if there were not.
Yeah, well, I think this is a good question because
hold on one second, Sarah. I'm going to let someone else have a chance. I know how passionate you are about war plots and PvP, but go ahead, Steppenwolf.